What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Cadman Cycling, and this is a new one we got today. I'm sure you've seen the title. It's a bit of a spoiler, so try not to talk about it yet, but definitely excited for this big accomplishment for my Zwift cycling career. So we're getting started here. This is a bit of a different race than I'm used to. For those who have seen my videos before, you know I'm a big Crit City fan. Definitely raced that a little too much, but I feel like I know that course like the back of my hand. I like the short races. This is another short race though, so we're here in Innsbruck. It's the Innsbruck Flat Race. It's a total of 11.1 miles, and it has 500 feet of climbing, but it's a much different kind of elevation gain than I would see at Crit City. So Crit City has a lot of rollers, ups and downs. This is an extremely flat course, 98% of the time. And then there's one climb on this course, and it's called the Leg Snapper. And it's just a big hill up a road that goes for maybe 60 seconds. I think it's about 90 feet of climbing up that hill. So it's not a killer climb or anything. It's just a quick steep gradient, but it definitely breaks up the group. So we'll see that. It's 2 laps around this Innsbruck Flat, so we get to go up that portion of the course twice. So we'll see that a little bit further on. But this is a Category C race, so I've spent most of this season in Category C, just very quickly started in Cat D, but was able to move up to Cat C. But in this race, we have riders from all different categories. So we can see the majority I'm with right now do have that blue C, but there's also A's, B's, and D's all riding along with us. So of the 102 riders, they're not all actually in my group. So I'm kind of just looking at that right-hand side and trying to track exactly who's in my group, because that's who I'm racing against. So we got off to a decent start. It's nice that it's all flat. So a lot of the A's and most of the B's kind of got off to a really quick start. They started out of a different pen, but they're off in the distance. And to be honest, that's okay with me. I'm not here to race against them. I'm here to race in my category. But we do see just about 2 seconds ahead is a little bit of a group that's trying to form. Looks like it has some B's and C's, so we'll immediately try to close that gap as best as we can, especially on the flat section before they get away. It looks like the group we have here, just looking at that map in the top right corner, is much bigger than the 5 or 6 ahead of us, so we try our best to utilize the draft and kind of slowly pulling them back in. So the Leg Snapper climb is actually pretty close to the end of the lap. So we'll spend most of our time here on the flat. The Leg Snapper comes with, I think it's about 2.5 miles left to go. It's a climb up a hill, but then immediately back down. So it's kind of important to push over the top of the hill once you get to the top and maintain some of that speed on the way down. But we'll get to that point in a few minutes, as we're just, again, here in this decent sized group, majority of us C's, and we have caught that group in front of us. So we'll kind of just bunch up here and try to continue this pace going forward. I've never raced at Innsbruck before, and it's tough because it's only a 2-lap race, so I really only get one time around this first lap to kind of get a gauge of how everything's situated, where the turns are, where the inclines are, and then ultimately at the end of the lap, kind of what the final sprint looks like. So that's definitely an important key to racing, is just it helps so much to understand a course and know exactly what to expect, when to conserve energy, when to push yourself. That can definitely help in a race. So I think Innsbruck at least this portion of Innsbruck is a pretty easy race. It's very flat, a lot of straights. So there's not a whole lot of kind of course knowledge that's required, I would say. But definitely something to think about on other races and courses, just to understand exactly where the rollers, where the climbs are. Even if it's just a mentality of feeling like you know everything there is to know about the course, and it could give you an advantage against the riders around you. So just looking back on the right-hand side of the screen right now, so there's about 15 people in this group, I would say, and we're kind of in between like 40th and maybe 55th. So we're about kind of in the middle of the crowd when it comes to all the categories, but we've definitely kind of made our group here. Looks like we have one A straggler in here. We have one or two Ds who are keeping with this group, but the majority are Bs and Cs, and that makes sense, and that's really where I want to be. So I would say the riders in this pack that are Bs, as we kind of skip forward a little bit, still in the first lap though, the majority who are Bs are probably somewhere in the mid-pack Bs, because there are groups in front that would have Bs, but all of the Cs in this group are kind of the front group of Cs that I'll be doing my best to stay with throughout this race. So here we go. We're going up the leg snapper. We can see the gradients up to 8%. We came in a very big group, but this climb, well, it's not extremely long. It's definitely enough to kind of split up this group. I'm sitting somewhere in the middle right here, still putting out 350 watts, so pushing it up this climb. The strategy I kind of took to this climb is I stayed seated for the first third, I would say, and then I stood up for the middle third and then sat back down for the final third. I think that was really just a feel thing. I didn't really have that planned going into it, but it's just kind of based on the length of the climb. That was just what felt right. So I kind of got stuck out in kind of no man's land there. I'm trying to reach this front group, but just can't quite do it. I'm still, of our group of 15 to 20 riders, I'm still near the front, but I kind of lost this group a little bit. And as you can see, we made that turn around the corner. Now we're going downhill, but I'm still putting out 300 to 400 watts, or I was. Now I'm back down to 200. Just because I was kind of forced to, because I lost these guys in front of me, and I knew that on the downhill with the draft, I wouldn't be able to catch back up to them if I kind of just coasted down the hill. So I'm still at 300 watts here, trying to regain contact with this group. I see there's a few C's still in this group ahead of me, so I definitely need to stay with them. As I take a sip of water. But yeah, just wanted to stay with them. Don't want to lose them yet. It took a lot out of me. You can see my heart rate's now at 185 beats per minute. But I've kind of caught on to the back half of them. There's still 3 or 4 out in front. I'll continue pushing, just trying to get this group back together. And ultimately, I think it works out. We'll see. But we're getting near the end of the first lap as we bring this group back together. So definitely a learning experience for me. Now I've gone up the leg snapper, I've come down the descent, and kind of seen how the riders interact with that hill. A lot of these guys and girls, just pushed it up the hill really hard, and then continued pushing over the top, and then kind of took it easy once they were over top. So I kind of, my first time up it, I found myself kind of lagging behind a lot of them, and then really had to continue pushing on the descent to catch back up to them. So definitely a learning experience going into the second lap. As long as I have the energy to do it, I want to kind of expend as much energy as I can on the way up, so that I can be in the group on the descent and not continuing to put out those crazy high watts just to stay on. But now that we've kind of completed the descent, overall what we've done, and we're even catching some riders that were in front of us that maybe got dropped on that leg snapper from groups ahead of us. But what we've done is we've kind of even made a further selection from the original group. So we had, like I said, maybe 20 riders, 15 to 20 riders, and now it's even the smaller group of maybe 8 or 9 of us, as we're also catching a few riders in front of us. But that's exactly what those kind of short climbs do, is they really make a selection from the group. So if you can stay with the front group up the climb and then down the descent, it's actually really helpful. It kind of lowers the amount of people you're racing against, right? If it's a group of 20 that come to a final sprint, it's you against 20 people. By making this selection, if there's now 10 going into the final sprint, you have a much better chance to place better. So overall, that took a lot out of me, but I'm still feeling pretty good. My heart rate's in the 180s, but I am pushing higher watts than I'm used to pushing when in Crit City. I think it's just a matter of this race is a bit more flat than Crit City, so it's easier just to kind of stay consistent with it. Not as many rollers, kind of just the one hill that we push up pretty hard. So we're kind of settling in again, getting into the end of the first lap, knowing we have a long flat section ahead of us. This group kind of has lowered the wattage. A few people try to push off the front, but the group's large enough that really no one's going to be able to break away from it. So as we see a few riders kind of starting to push ahead, then the full group will just kind of bring up the wattage as well. So at this point, we're halfway through. We're just about to get to this start-finish banner. And again, really, there's a lot of flat here until we get to the leg snapper the second time. So in a few minutes, we'll go ahead and skip forward to get to the leg snapper. But just at this point, I wanted to bring up the fact that I did actually just create an Instagram account. So if you guys are on Instagram and want to follow me there, it's at Cadman Cycling. So I'll be posting more about my indoor rides, also eventually some about my outdoor rides, and even giving some sneak peeks before I post videos, just so you know what's upcoming. So follow me there if you're interested. Definitely trying to get on more social medias to interact with more people in the Zwift cycling world. So we'll go ahead here and actually skip forward. So we're here at 6 miles. Then now once we jump forward, we're now at 7.5 miles. So we have 3.5 miles left in the race. Again, kind of getting ready, prepping for that next leg snapper. And this is the same exact group that we just had before. So again, just looking at the complexion of the group on the right, we still have one A with us, quite a few C's and quite a few B's. So that's about what I would expect at this point in the race, as we're still just going through the city preparing for the leg snapper. It's really getting to the end of kind of the Zwift indoor cycling season. I think even the colder regions around the world are starting to get to summertime. It's now middle of May, so a lot of outdoor riding started. I actually haven't gotten out on the bike yet. I've still kind of been enjoying the indoor Zwift races, but it's just a matter of finding some time on a weekend. Definitely want to get out as soon as I can, because that's what it's all about, right? Zwift is a whole lot of fun, these races and indoor training, but there's something just about being out in nature, and the way kind of on a bike your body moves through the space. It's so much different. It's a completely different experience than indoor cycling. Obviously same sport, but just two completely different ways to look at it. So I'm definitely excited to get into some more outdoor riding this year. Hope all the Zwift training has made me faster outdoors as well. I really love making these YouTube videos. I like the races, and honestly rewatching them and doing some of these breakdowns helps me kind of learn and get better at racing and understand how I can like utilize my energy better. And I think that's helped kind of. I started this year in Cat D, and now I'm kind of moving up the ranks in Cat C. This being kind of my most exciting race for me yet, and kind of like a big kind of notch in me trying to get better as a Zwift racer, but also just a all-around bike rider and staying in shape. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy watching these Zwift races, whether it's the live races, these breakdowns, or even some of those map videos that I make. Feel free to comment down below if there's anything else that you guys want to see from me. I really just want to kind of grow this world of Zwift. So if there's anything else you want to see, feel free to comment it back below. But here we are, so 2.5 miles left. This is our second time up the leg snapper. So last time I told myself, okay, I was too far behind at the top of the hill. So here I am pushing 500 watts now up this hill as I see some of these guys starting to really push up the hill. So my heart rate's all the way up to over 190. And now I'm down to 200 watts. I'm trying to remember. I must have just been, the legs must have been hurting. I was at 500 watts and now I'm back up to 450. So I took what I learned from last time, and it looks like I'm trying to put out as many watts as I possibly can, as much power to get over the top. But just some of these other riders are just so powerful. It's crazy. Some of them are B-Cat, but also C-Cat, just really pushing it. So I did my best up the hill, but you can see while I dropped quite a few people, I also got dropped. So again, here I find myself on going down the hill, but this time around, I just don't quite have it. So I'm kind of just at 100 watts, getting closer to 200. But this is where I think I lose the guys in front of me. I just don't quite have enough to catch them with just 2 miles left. So then there's these two other guys, both B-Cat riders, that I kind of struggle. I'm now back at 400 watts. Almost accidentally let them fly by, but I can definitely use their draft. So I pushed the watts as quickly as possible to kind of jump on with them. So looking back on the right-hand side of the screen, it's now our group of 3. We have a group or a few stragglers 6 to 15 seconds behind us. And then we have this other group of 3 up ahead, just 4 seconds ahead. So at this point, with still 1.6 miles, I'm thinking this is possible. If we, as a group of 3, kind of work and continue to keep the wattage high, we might be able to catch them. But they're thinking the same thing about the people in front of them. So there's another group that's 15 seconds ahead. So they're thinking they can make up 10 seconds. We're hoping we can make up 4 or 5 seconds. So we'll kind of see what happens here. It's just 1.5 miles left though. So there's not a whole lot of time, but we are pushing out the watts. This is kind of I guess it would be higher than FTP effort, but we're just, it's completely flat until the end of the race. So for the next mile, how hard can we push ourselves, and can we catch this group in front of us? As we just go through this sprint banner. Again, those sprints are fun during free rides, but essentially in races, I mostly ignore them, and I would say the majority of riders do as well, because it's all about who gets to the finish line the quickest, right? The intermediate sprints don't give any extra points or anything. This isn't a points race. So at this point, again, I'm looking on that right-hand screen and I see that the gap has gone from 4 to 5 seconds all the way up to 7 seconds. So we're not gaining ground on that group in front of us. And at the same time, I'm looking at the two other Zwift riders here that I'm riding with, and they're both B category riders. So while they're racing against each other, how I finish in this group of 3 won't really affect my final standings. So I'm kind of at a point in the race where I'm going to continue to push here, just give it everything I have. But that group in front, we've kind of lost them. And I don't have a kind of a dog in the fight, I would say, me against these two guys. It doesn't really affect my final standing. So obviously the competitor in me, I'm still going to give it my all. I'm still going to sprint against these guys because that's what makes you better. I eventually want to get to Cat B. So these are the people I would be racing against. So I want to see how I can finish. So here we are, just 0.5 miles left. It looks like the person in the orange is starting to make a bit of a run, but the white rider quickly helps me fill that gap. We kind of group back up here. Just 0.4 miles. And I do want to say, I use Zwift Power for all of my final standings, just because in Zwift, a lot of times riders can kind of join a group that they shouldn't be in. So for example, a Cat C rider could join a Cat D race. And while they won't be disqualified in Zwift, if you check in Zwift Power, it will disqualify them. So that's kind of what I have used for the truth of these Zwift races. And I think that's generally accepted within most Zwift riders. Use Zwift Power just to make sure everyone's kind of following the same standards. So here we go, 800 feet left. I'm kind of waiting for the sprint. I want to see who goes first, and then I want to try to follow them. So this guy in the white jersey goes. I see the orange guy isn't following him, so this is where I step on it. I give it everything I have, turning over the pedals. Just too many leg snappers. I didn't quite have it. So I finished in second there behind the rider in the white. But here's the Zwift Power standings, and when I checked, I got first place in the C category. There were only 9 riders, but I was happy to bring home first. This is really, I'll consider it my first Cat C win. So I'm happy with that. I think starting this season in Cat D, moving up to Cat C, and this being my first Zwift Power Cat C win, I'm happy with where I've come, and I hope that eventually I'll be in Cat B, riding with the riders up there and just continuing to get better. So thanks everyone for kind of being with me on this race breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. I love interacting with all of you. So I hope to see you soon on Zwift. Until next time, this is Cadman Cycling. See you later. Bye.